biggest mistake. I'm blue without your face. But what can I do? 'Cause I'm just a sinking ship, and you're just a pair of lips that I've lost in the moment. All I want is for you to come back. Now I'm caught in the middle of life, and I need.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host, your brother, and your friend Rashid, and I'd like to thank each and every one of you for joining me and giving me another hour of your day on the most powerful platform for truth, bar none, on God's green earth. This is your platform for education, elevation, and edification. This is the Red Pill Diaries. Now, everybody, don't forget to join us tomorrow at 1 Central Time, 2 Eastern Time. We'll have Larry Johnson back on the program. We're going to have a lot of surprises coming up in the coming weeks. We're going to talk about a lot of issues today, a lot of issues. But the main thing that I want to address to you all is the title of the show. All for the Empire. Out with the old, in with the old. That title says a lot. Before we go into it, I want to announce the first winner from the Patreon and the channel member stream. Flying Crocodile is the winner of the half-ounce silver coin that will be going out this week. I'd like to thank you all for participating. And all you have to do is listen to the live stream that the video that we did. There's a trivial question in it, and just email the trivial question, your answer to the email provided, and then we'll put your names in the hat, pull them out. I prefer doing that than letting the computer algorithm do it for you, okay? Now, let's get into it. First, we got to give applause and claps to Flying Crocodile. Now, I want to say something to you all. The title of the show is just more than a title. I thought when I was talking to my son about doing the thumbnail for it, I wanted to show in words, because sometimes they say pictures are worth more than 1,000 words, worth 1,000 words. So as Biden was getting on his Air Force One trip to leave Washington for good, Trump was coming down the walkway from Air Force One to be inaugurated or to be sworn in as President of the United States. And I thought that said so much with the title because of the things that both of them do. Both of them are diehard Zionists. They'll tell you that. And what's crazy about it is that they'll call people who are fighting to liberate their land in Palestine, in Syria, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, from colonial powers such as America, they'll call them insurgents, terrorists, right? And they're thousands of miles away on those people's land, right? They are the freedom fighter. They are spreading democracy. They are benign in their efforts to occupy and dominate. But the people who are fighting and resisting the domination and the occupation become terrorist insurgents. This is Orwellian. This is what I'm talking about when I tell you about the bizarro thinking of the West, where up is down and down is up, in is out and out is in. So today we're going to play some clips and we're going to go over a few articles to show you that there's not much difference from the administration that just left office and the administration that just took office. Okay? So first, let me get to something real quick. Where's the thing? Give me 1 second to pull it up. Okay? Now, I want to bring something to your attention here. Let's go to, because people get mad when you point out in these inconvenient facts and inconvenient truth, but don't get mad at the messenger, get mad at the truth. If you don't like the truth, say that you don't like the truth, okay? Because there's no embellishment over here. There's no falsifying anything over here. It's only raw facts, okay? So we're going to go to a little clip real quick. This is a short clip, all right? And I want you to pay close attention to this, and we'll see if the rhetoric matches the action.
We're talking about denuking, denuking, and President Putin and I agreed that we were going to do it in a very big way. There's no reason for us to be building brand new nuclear weapons. We already have so many. You could destroy the world 50 times over, 100 times over. And here we are building new nuclear weapons, and they're building nuclear weapons, and China's building new nuclear weapons, and China's trying to catch up because, you know, they're very substantially behind, but within 5 or 6 years, they'll be even. And we're all spending a lot of money that we could be spending on other things that are actually, hopefully, much more productive. Hopefully, there'll never be a time when we need those weapons. If there's ever a time when we need nuclear weapons, like the kind of weapons that we're building and that Russia has and that China has to a lesser extent, but will have, that's going to be a very sad day. That's going to be probably oblivion.
So you hear him denouncing nuclear weapons and nuclearization, not denuclearization, but nuclearization, building more nukes, investing more weapons, all right? And here's an article that comes out March 31st, and it's on RT. And the title of the article is Trump to Modernize U.S. Nuclear Arsenal. See, the rhetoric sounds good, right? Denuclearization, focusing more of the funds on things that are most needed, right? That sounds good. But when one's pierced through the first layer of the onion of lies, one finds another truth there. And this is Trump to modernize U.S. nuclear arsenal, energy secretary. So this is somebody in the administration that holds some type of information because he's the energy secretary, and nuclear weapons falls under the energy division of the administration. So he's not talking out of the side of his neck when he's saying this. He's saying this on good authority, okay? So let's listen. Let's read a little bit of it. The American deterrent is aging, and some warheads are in need of replacement, Chris Wright has said. The administration of President Donald Trump will modernize the aging U.S. nuclear weapons arsenal without increasing its size. So, hold on. Is that some good information, or is that some good news without increasing its size when the United States has roughly 4,000 or 5,000 nuclear warheads? Trump explained to himself, saying that between Russia and America, they have enough weapons to destroy the world 50 to 100 times over. So the redundancy of adding more weapons, it's lunacy. So, but you will invest upwards of $10 trillion over 10 years to upgrade. It's not the same. You're not putting it in the same state it was. You are modernizing it for more lethality. You understand? More lethality. It says the administration of President Donald Trump will modernize the aging U.S. nuclear weapons arsenal without increasing its size, Energy Secretary Chris Wright has said. In an interview with Fox News on Sunday, Wright described the U.S. nuclear stockpile as becoming older and getting obsolete. Isn't that what Trump said that they were working towards? They wanted to denuclearize? Hold on. Don't take my word for it. Let's listen to him again. Okay?
We're talking about denuking, denuking, and President Putin and I agreed that we were going to do it in a very big way. There's no reason for us to be building brand new nuclear weapons. We already have so many. You could destroy the world 50 times over, 100 times over. And here we are building new nuclear weapons, and they're building nuclear weapons, and China's building new nuclear weapons, and China's trying to catch up because, you know, they're very substantially behind, but within 5 or 6 years, they'll be even. And we're all spending a lot of money that we could be spending on other things that are actually, hopefully, much more productive. Hopefully, there'll never be a time when we need those weapons. If there's ever a time when we need nuclear weapons, like the kind of weapons that we're building and that Russia has and that China has to a lesser extent, but will have. That's going to be a very sad day. That's going to be probably oblivion.
So we're reaching that point, right? Let's go to the chat real quick before we finish this part right here. Shout out to Jadami Williams. Salute. I'm at the dispenser. Red pill, please. Salute to you. Ping One is in the building. This thing jumped on me right here. Ping One is in the building. It's jumping. I'm sorry, everybody. And Ping One says salam, Rashid, and chat salam to you. Nick Hall. Hi, Rashid, in the chat. Nick, salute to you. I don't know what this is, but thank you for a good video. FK. If that's meaning something, I can't say it. What the first thing that came to my head. But thank you. So let's go back to this article. We're not going to lose focus here. Oh, man, my sinuses are bothering me real quick. Hold on one second. It says, in an interview with Fox News on Sunday, Wright described the U.S. nuclear stockpile as becoming older and getting obsolete. He added that the country needs to modernize, claiming that no efforts had been taken towards that aim in the past 3 decades. Well, I remember when Trump came into office in his first administration, he said that he was upgrading and modernizing the nuclear arsenal, and that he would push a $10 trillion modernization program. If I'm lying, I'm flying. Go Google it. Yahoo it, Bing it, DuckDuckGo it, to see if what Rashid says can be substantiated. Okay? So we're in the world of kabuki theater. They are lying and they're misrepresenting things to you. The rhetoric does not match the actions. My sister, I'm telling you, this negative wisdom that my sister gave me when I was in high school, my older sister who thinks she's my second mother, gave me in high school decades upon decades ago, right? And she said, when a person shows you who they are, believe them. She didn't say when a person tells you who they are. She said when a person shows you who they are, meaning behind the actions. Look at the actions behind the rhetoric. That is very important when you're dealing with people. Because anybody can say anything. But what we're looking for today is proof, and we're looking for truth, and we're looking for facts. So you're going to get it here on the most powerful platform for truth on God's green earth. So it goes further and says, Wright stressed that modernization does not mean the number of nuclear warheads. We don't need to grow our nuclear stockpile. Why would he say that? Because they have insane numbers as it is. I want you to think about the lunacy. Before we go further on this, I want you to think about the lunacy of this. How many Earths do we have here in this solar system? All right? How many? One, right? You are so maniacal and so diabolical in your thought process that you have put the earth in a position to be destroyed because of your desire, your unquenchable thoughts that you must dominate and you must rule, and to prevent anybody else from ruling, I will build up enough missile material, enough nuclear material to prevent anyone from ascending to the position that I'm in. People say, well, they will never use nuclear weapons. They said that when those bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, right? Don't sweep that under the rug, because that brought in the dawn of a new era. Think about the cost for the R&D or research and development part. Think about that. Billions upon billions. Think about the staffing that you have to pay. Think about the upgrades and the maintenance on that. You are not spending trillions of dollars just for show. And you have already shown through your actions in Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and according to what former two-time Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney told me there was evidence that some type of nuclear devices or radiation devices were used in Libya by the coalition and were used in Iraq. So we have a willingness to use depleted uranium. We have a propensity to use atomic bombs. And you're telling me we don't have the will and the wherewithal to use hydrogen bombs? Huh? So you're just going to use $10 trillion to upgrade and to stockpile it just for show. I want to ask anybody who's looking at this. When America's factories or when their storage of weaponry, right, gets to a certain point, what do? They find a war to have to get involved in, right? So that they can empty the stockpiles that they've been holding on to for the longest, so that they can justify more military spending, so that they can replenish the stockpiles that they have just used in war. They do testing in areas of the globe in war. They did it in Iraq. They're doing it in Yemen. They've done it in Somalia. They've done it all across Africa. They've done it in Latin America. They've done it in the Caribbean. They've done it in Asia. And now they're doing it on the European continent. So when a person shows you who they are, regardless of what you think about them, or all of the good thoughts that you may have about them because of their rhetoric, you can get a deeper and better understanding by looking at the actions, right? That's like if a person said, I'm tired of being overweight. I'm tired of being overweight. I got to get some done. And every time you turn around, they got an excuse why not to sacrifice to get some of that off of them, right? That means that they're not tired of that position. Because when you become flat out tired, something kicks in and actions take place behind that, right? So when a person says, well, we'll never use the weapon, then what the hell do you keep them for then? Why are you always threatening people with them? And why do you say that they are a vital part of your deterrent doctrine or the vital part of your military doctrine if you have no intentions whatsoever on using them? Now, let's go back to something before we get to this article, a point that I'm trying to make with you all, to show you the diabolical thinking, the lunacy of the leadership of America and the West. So we have one planet called Earth in this solar system, right? This is the planet that we came out of. I don't care how much they give you Star Wars, Star Trek, or whatever. You're not going to go on any other planet and live because you did not come from that planet. You came from this, and the essence of you is from here. That's why when astronauts go up into space and they're away from home so long, they have to go and be seen for weeks and months under medical attention, and they have to be studied because their organs change. The way their blood and blood cells react to being in the environment that they were deprived of when they were in space. When they come home, they have to be monitored because they have some type of effect to that. This is the stuff that they don't tell you, but it can be easily pulled up. They want you to believe that you're going to go and grow food on Mars and eat it, even though you did not come from the soil of Mars. So to show you the lunacy in their mind, they are prepared to blow the world up not one time. That's not good enough for them. Not 2 times. That's not good enough for them. Not 5 times. That's not good enough for them. Not even 10 times. That's not good enough for them. We built enough destructive weapons to destroy the world over 30, 50, and even 100 times over, as President Trump said, right? That's what he said. So if you blow the world up one time, where you going? Because you can't go to Venus and live. You're not going to Pluto to live. See, they don't think about these things because they have this unquenchable and insatiable desire to dominate. And they believe that if they cannot dominate, we're burning the whole house down. We're going to burn the whole house down. Look at Ukraine. Because America could not dominate, she's burning the whole house down. Look at Asia, because she is losing her footing in Asia and can no longer cower China or dictate to China. She's willing to set the entire region on fire in war. Look at what she's doing to the Horn of Africa, because Africa is reaching for itself and reaching for independence. So she floods Africa with ethnic strife and tensions, and her terror groups like Boko Haram and ISIS and Al Qaeda and HTS and all of that stuff, flooding it. Look at what is going on in Latin America. Look at what's going on in Europe, the so-called beacon of democracy, where they're locking up people and where they're disqualifying candidates that have the majority of the people. Huh? This is bizarro world where the rhetoric doesn't match the actions. So let's go to this. All right. Give me 1 second, everybody. The screen just went black. All right, it says, the U.S. official did not provide details on the number of warheads to be refurbished or the deadline for the effort. Well, all one has to do is Google Trump's first term, when Trump gave you the insight when he said that the United States was going to modernize the entire nuclear arsenal, and they did a projected cost, and that was when he was first in office, of $10 trillion. All one has to do is Google it. So it says, the best thing, listen to what this fool says. I'm telling you, these people do not respect your intelligence when they speak to you. Because there is no way that any sane or rational person would even say something like what I'm about to quote. The best thing, now this is a quote now from the Energy Secretary. Right? The best thing about nuclear weapons is to not use them. I'm not lying. That is what starts that quote right there. So you want to spend trillions of dollars getting a nuclear arsenal, trillions to update it and maintain it over the decades, and now trillions more to modernize it and then maintain it, only to not use. Huh? You know that doesn't make sense to you guys. Stop it. Stop it. Let's go further. The best thing about nuclear weapons is to not use them. And to not use them, the world has to have, listen to this. And to not use them, the world has to have 100% confidence that America leads the world in the weapons technology, the reliability, and the assessment of our stockpile. So if the world does not believe America has all of that, then America will use them. That's nuclear blackmail. Do you understand that? The best way, listen to this thing again. This is what I'm telling you. They tell you certain things right to your face and you don't even pick it up. Listen to what he said. The best thing about nuclear weapons is to not use them. And to not use them, he's giving you the reason how this would leave America not using them. Because anything other than this will allow for America to use them. The way he's phrased this sentence. The best thing about nuclear weapons is to not use them. And to not use them, the world. Now he puts the burden on the world. Not on America, but on the world. The world has to have 100% confidence that America leads in the world, in the weapons technology, the reliability, and the assessment of our stockpile. Did you hear that? So the only way that America will not use them, according to the Energy Secretary, is that America must lead. The world must know, meaning that America must demonstrate to you that she's the number one nuclear power, even though it's Russia has nuclear power. Russia is leaps and bounds ahead of America in delivery systems, missiles, the nuclear technology. As a matter of fact, 20 to 30% of America's nuclear energy comes from Russia. But this says that, and to not use them, the world has to have 100% confidence that America leads in the world of the weapons technology, reliability, and the assessment of our stockpile. So what does that mean? That means we got to demonstrate it to them. Because just telling them won't make the world have confidence in that. So we have to demonstrate that. This comes from the Energy Secretary under Donald Trump. Rashid did not, matter of fact, go to RT. If you think what I'm saying is a lie, go to RT and put in the search engine on RT.com, Trump to modernize U.S. nuclear arsenal. Just do it. And I'm reading to you 1, 2, 3, 4, the first 4 paragraphs. I didn't even read the rest. I just read you the first 4. So the more things change, the more they stay the same. And as we say, you know, believe the actions, not just the rhetoric, okay? So shout out to everybody. Well, Nick, hold on one second, everybody. This thing is jumping real quick. All right. Udami says, that's what called sleight of hand. Absolutely. That's what magicians do, sleight of hand. No need for we to build new nuclear weapons. That's what magicians do. They have you looking here while the trick is over here. That's sleight of hands. All of this stuff, as I tell you all the time, is Walt Disney. It's make-believe. They're selling you a narrative, but the reality of it is way different. Like I was watching TV the other day, yesterday. I was checking up on news, and I was listening to certain people. They were saying that, hey, we've been telling you about Zelensky, about America running the show. I'm the one that's been saying that constantly when everybody was blaming Zelensky. I'm the one that said, really? When every time you turn around, Zelensky asks for too much. Every time you turn around, Zelensky this. Ukrainian troops won't listen. Ukrainian troops do. I said, come, when has the empire ever allowed that to happen? They fund you. They're embedded in your intelligence agencies. They're embedded, and some people even came up with it yesterday and said, as much as what I've been telling you all, that Zelensky and his cronies are protected by British and U.S. Special Forces. I've been saying that, for over a year or two? But because YouTube keeps me out of the algorithm, as I tell you, this little channel is your favorite channel's favorite channel. Because you're going to get it raw here. No chaser. I've been telling everybody, there is not a time in American history where the empire has funded you, funded your budget, embedded itself in your intelligence agencies, your military intelligence agencies, your military, your special forces, and is even surrounding the president and have people in the parliament of that nation. And then you get to have a free will on deciding policy for what your country is going to do. Stop this. This was Rashid in the Red Pill Diary saying this stuff. And I was calling out everybody because they kept putting the blame on Zelensky. They kept putting the blame on Ukraine. And I kept saying, when has it ever happened? We got to go to something. Because the name of the show is All for the Empire. Out with the old, in with the old. So, even as we look to what's going on right now with Europe and Russia and Trump and the so-called NATO conundrum in Ukraine, I see people reporting saying that there's a divide in Europe over the policies that Trump is doing, and Trump is not consulting these people. And Trump, man, listen to me good. Stop it. This is good cop, bad cop. Stop that. saying that there's a great look at the policies. Forget the rhetoric. Look at the policies. What did War Secretary, and I've been calling the U.S. Department of Defense the War Department since I've been on YouTube, and now the Department of War is starting to take a poll to see if they should be called the War Department. I've been calling the War Secretary, and not the Defense Secretary since I've been on YouTube. Huh? Did I go over to what they were saying, or did they come over to what I was saying? That's one thing that should be asked. Okay? So now, the War Secretary says that the United States has to be more focused in the Asia Pacific. They must put more resources over there, not to wage war with China, but to confront China through strength, not through military force, just a show of strength. Man, stop that. And we must divide up our responsibilities. All right? So what responsibility did he dictate for the European Union? Huh? He told them to focus on Russia. What are they doing? Oh, we will not sign on to Trump's thing. We will keep the sanctions. As a matter of fact, we're readying another package of sanctions, right? All right? This is kabuki theater, I'm telling you guys. Do you believe that America will allow its vassal states to be so intransigent on the international scene? Do you know intransigence causes other people to look up and say, hey, the empire is weak? And then it causes other vassals to then buck up against the empire. So do you believe that America is in such a weakened state that she would allow that to happen? No, this is good cop, bad cop. All while Trump is talking to Putin, he is still feeding intelligence, he's still feeding weapons, and he's still funding the regime in Kiev, and he's still okaying U.S. and British and NATO special forces to target and to actually strike into Russian territory. With all of the rhetoric talking about diplomacy, that has yet to yield or stop. Right? This is to put pressure on him publicly, put pressure on Putin, say that Trump and the West are trying to negotiate, while covertly putting pressure on Russia, saying that we're going to keep this death by 1,000 cuts striking your territory until you capitulate, not negotiate, till you capitulate to the losers and make us the winners. You understand this? I don't think a lot of you process that. A lot of the media can't process that. It cannot process that. There's no way. Because of the way they report it back to you as giving America an out and trying to make the Western world and the U.S. Administration a sewer for peace when we're looking at the actions of the empire. Well, Trump really wants peace, does he? How in the hell can you want peace threatening to bomb Iran with the most devastating bombings that the world has ever known? Have you stopped arming Ukraine as you promised on the campaign trail? No. Did you stop intelligence sharing? No. Did you cut off the funding? No. What about in Yemen? What about in Somalia, excuse me. Huh? Have you stopped that? What about in Syria, where you are allowing Israel to salami slice the Syrian Arab Republic? What about in Lebanon, where you are allowing the Lebanese to be slaughtered as you allowed for the Gazans, the Palestinians, to be slaughtered? What about in Iraq, where you refuse to acknowledge the authority of the Iraqi government and take your troops out of Iraq? Huh? I'm asking. The actions do not add up to the rhetoric. And when the actions do not add up to the rhetoric, one should be more concerned with the actions than the rhetoric. You understand? So, if you don't believe this, let me go to something real quick. So we're going to point out a few things, okay? Let's go to this next clip, all right? I want you to listen close to this, and then we're going to address this on the other side of it.
Just hours ago, President Trump called me to tell me he is, quote, pissed off with Russia's President Putin and threatened to impose secondary tariffs on Russia's oil. Quote, if Russia and I are unable to make a deal on stopping the bloodshed in Ukraine, and if I think it was Russia's fault, which it might not be, but if I think it was Russia's fault, I am going to put secondary tariffs on all oil coming out of Russia. Mr. Trump said 25% tariffs on Russian oil could happen any moment and told me he plans to speak with President Putin this week. The president told me, quote, I was very angry, pissed off when Putin started getting into Zelensky's credibility and started talking about new leadership in Ukraine. On Iran, the president said he's also considering secondary tariffs if Iran doesn't agree to a nuclear deal. Quote, if they don't make a deal, there will be bombing, and it will be bombing the likes of which they have never seen before.
So that's a lot to unpack right there, right? Trump is mad. He's pissed off. There's an old saying that my mom used to always say when people say that. It's better to be pissed off than get pissed on. All right? So let's look at this. He said he's pissed off, especially that Vladimir Putin questioned the credibility. He questioned the credibility and the legitimacy of the Ukrainian president, right? Right? All right. Well, let's go to something real quick. Because I'm Mr. Showman. You know I live in Florida, right? The Sunshine State. But I love the Show Me State, all right? Missouri. So I'm going to show you some stuff, all right? Trump says he was pissed off about that, right? All right. Let's see how much he was pissed off. Okay? In the Times of Israel, a newspaper, online newspaper. This came out February 19th, 2025. Okay? Because Trump called the MSNBC reporter and relayed his feelings about the negotiations. This is a pressure tactic right there, too. That he is pissed off with Vladimir Putin for questioning the credibility of the Ukrainian president, right? Let's go to the article. The article is titled, Trump labels Zelensky a dictator. Hold up. Well, isn't that questioning the democratically elected president's legitimacy? When you take the Democratic part out and then started calling him a dictator, isn't that to delegitimize the position of that person? Huh? I'm asking. Trump labels Zelensky a dictator as tensions rise over Russian war against Ukraine. President claims, it should say President Trump, it said President claims Ukrainian leader talked U.S. into providing aid for war that couldn't be won after blaming Kiev for Putin's invasion. U.S. President Donald Trump on Wednesday called Volodymyr Zelensky a dictator without elections. He wasn't pissed off about that one, though, right? That didn't get him pissed off. That didn't get him in his feelings right there, right? Why? Because he said it, right? But when Putin almost echoes that pisses him off. Huh? That pisses him off. Man, stop this foolishness. A little bit further says, U.S. President Donald Trump on Wednesday called Volodymyr Zelensky a dictator without elections, lashing out after the Ukrainian president said Trump was being influenced by Russian disinformation as he moves to end the Kremlin's war against Ukraine on terms that Kiev says are too favorable to Moscow. Think of it. This is a quote. Think of it. A modestly successful comedian, Volodymyr Zelensky, talked the United States into spending $350 billion to go into a war that couldn't be won, that never had to start, but a war that he, without the U.S. and Trump, will never be able to settle. Now, it says Trump added in his social media post that Zelensky is a dictator without elections. You're not pissed about that. but you're pissed about Vladimir Putin echoing similar thoughts. Now his people are fighting that war that the U.S. and NATO imposed upon his nation, right? Through intransigence and imperial hubris by you and your guys, one that you have yet to take the foot off the gas and put on the brake. You're talking, and you talk a good game. But the funding for the government continues to come from the United States. You're talking a good game. But the arms shipment has continued to flow into Ukraine. You're talking, and you talk a good game. But the intelligence and the human resources on the ground have not stopped yet from the U.S., the UK, and NATO. So you're talking a good game with all of this yah-yah and rah-rah rhetoric, but the actions tell us something different. And when a person shows you who they are, what are we supposed to do, guys? Come on, I'll wait. Believe what they say through their actions, okay? All right? So, hey, I didn't make any of this up. You see, I'm reading it, and I'm showing you the videos. So you can't say anything that Rashid made anything up. So we're going to go to something real quick, okay? Man, thank you guys for joining me on the most powerful platform for truth anywhere. All right? But some you just said, Perseverance Chameleon, Zelensky is nothing more than a sock puppet. Absolutely. So knowing that, why were the alternative media outlets constantly putting the blame on Zelensky? Every time you turned around, Zelensky would not listen. Zelensky continues to ask for more. Zelensky is this, Zelensky is that. And then they said, while Trump is trying to work for peace and do this and this and this, when has Trump shown a propensity for peace? This man is threatening to bomb Iran into the Stone Age. Has he let up on the gas in Gaza? Look at what he is allowing Israel to do in Lebanon and in Syria. The United States is still bombing Yemen, still bombing Somalia, still bombing that region around there. Just because the news doesn't report it to you doesn't mean it doesn't happen. So everything is Zelensky's fault, even though Zelensky can't. All of Zelensky money is in Western banks. In Western banks. And you want me to believe that this man still has a say? Huh? And then you say, well, the Ukrainian force, I remember when all of the every last one of them that I could think of were blaming Ukrainian for Bakhmut. And they were blaming them for the situation. And I said, man, listen to me. If you believe Zelensky is calling the shots, you crazy as hell. If you believe that the Ukrainian military is calling the shots, you are crazy. I said, this is a ploy by the United States and NATO. Go check what I said. They are doing this, but they are putting the face of Ukrainian military and the Ukrainian administration. So if the thing fails, it all falls on the Ukrainians. But if it's successful, they can take credit for leading from behind. This was on this channel. And now others are now catching up to what I've been saying for the longest. That you hear them, everybody's talking about all of the war planning, all of the bombing, all of the targeting, all of the strikes were being carried out under America's supervision in Germany, under NATO's auspices, right? Why is this breaking news? I've been telling you guys this since it started. Huh? All I'm asking is, if everybody's catching up to what I've said, I don't care if you have 100,000 subscribers, 2 million subscribers, if you're catching up to what I'm saying, then there's legitimacy in what I'm saying. And then for those of you who have been here the whole ride, you know that what I'm saying to you is the truth. Let's go a little further, all right? Well, it's jumping. Salute, Holly. Salute. Hold on, everybody. I'm trying to scroll down and see if I can get a couple. Oh, Pedro is in the building. Let's see. You're right, Pedro. Better late than never. Hard to say. Rashid always has receipts. You know, because people, I noticed this. When people gossip, people take gossip and run with it. And when people are telling you the truth, the people that are always telling you the truth are always the ones that are questioned. So it's best to have the proof. So if they question me, I'm not, you know, I can show and prove what I'm saying. So I'm about to show and prove a little bit more too. Okay. I'm about to show and prove. I'm telling you, the stuff that everybody's talking about now and is taking credit for, I was saying it when all of them were saying the opposite. I was the only person I could say, hey, look, calm down, put the brakes on that. Zelensky is just a puppet. You're giving him too much power, too much clout, and too much recognition. Because I know the way the empire works. And when I say the empire, I'm talking about the U.S. British Empire. I'm not excluding Britain from this, okay? Because the tricks that America learned, she picked up from Britain. All right? So I want to go to something real quick. So he said something about Iran, right? At the end of that clip, I'm gonna play that 58-second clip again, and I want you to pay close attention to what the person said about Trump, about Putin. But at the end, I want you to pay attention that she slid in something about Iran. All right, pay close attention.
Just hours ago, President Trump called me to tell me he is, quote, pissed off with Russia's President Putin and threatened to impose secondary tariffs on Russia's oil. Quote, if Russia and I are unable to make a deal on stopping the bloodshed in Ukraine, and if I think it was Russia's fault, which it might not be, but if I think it was Russia's fault, I am going to put secondary tariffs on all oil coming out of Russia. Mr. Trump said 25% tariffs on Russian oil could happen any moment and told me he plans to speak with President Putin this week. The president told me, quote, I was very angry, pissed off when Putin started getting into Zelensky's credibility and started talking about new leadership in Ukraine. On Iran, the president said he's also considering secondary tariffs if Iran doesn't agree to a nuclear deal. Quote, if they don't make a deal, there will be bombing, and it will be bombing the likes of which they have never seen before.
And that's a peace president. That's a peace president. Now we're going to see how all of this stuff started, okay? Because people say, well, this is a negotiating. They give too much credit to these people when they have a track record of stuff. They want you to believe this over here that they rarely use against this over here, which they always use. So, for us to get an understanding and see if this is a negotiating tactic, right? Or is this a setup for war? We're going to walk down memory lane, okay? We're going to walk down memory lane. I hope you got your New Balances on, your mental New Balances, because we're going to walk down memory lane and see what the deal is, okay? So now, let's go to Mr. Trump in his first triad president. Listen closely.
I am announcing today that the United States will withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal. In a few moments, I will sign a presidential memorandum to begin reinstating U.S. nuclear sanctions on the Iranian regime. We will be instituting the highest level of economic sanction. Any nation that helps Iran in its quest for nuclear weapons could also be strongly sanctioned by the United States. America will not be held hostage to nuclear blackmail. We will not allow American cities to be threatened with destruction, and we will not allow a regime that chants death to America to gain access to the most deadly weapons on earth. Today's action sends a critical message. The United States no longer makes empty threats. When I make promises, I keep them.
So now, there's a lot to unpack in that little small thing because we got a few more to follow that up, but it's a lot to unpack, okay? First of all, one of the main points that is missed when Trump pulled out of the nuclear deal is that he broke international law. Why isn't anybody saying that? Huh? Well, Rashid, what do you mean he broke international law? That's America's sovereign right. What I mean is that the JCPOA was negotiated by the United States and brought in other nations. And after there was an agreement, it was put before the UN Security Council and passed as law. And who is a member of the Security Council? We got 5 permanent members, right? Russia, China, France, Britain, and who else? Oh, the United States. So for that to pass, those 5 permanent members had to agree that this would be binding. So why isn't anybody saying that he broke international law? Huh? To unilaterally put out of an agreement that the United States negotiated. It wasn't this wasn't a thought of Russia or China. This was instigated by the United States, and Donald Trump pulled out of the deal. That was internationally recognized as law. Huh? Talk to me. Why hasn't anybody made that point? Now, he says that he will not allow U.S. cities to be bombed or threatened to be bombed. Iran has never threatened to bomb U.S. cities. Let me give a shout out to FEM in the building. Thank you for the $14 super chat. I really appreciate it. Salute to you, and thank you so much. But think about this. That was international law. Iran never threatened, but America on multiple occasions threatened to turn Iran into a glass desert. And why are you concerned with Iran getting 1, 5, or 10 nuclear weapons when you have a stockpile into the thousands? And you, Ahmadad, are the only nation to ever use them. Not once, but at least twice. So you pulled out of that and you did a reverse. You became the victim for violating the treaty that you negotiated. And then the victim became the aggressor from your perspective. Orwellian and bizarro world at its best. Nobody questions that. But we're gonna do a little bit more, okay? So I want you to listen. Let me go. Shout out to everybody on the chat. Thank you. So we're going to go a little further, all right? Listen to this right here. Because Trump says that was a bad deal, right? What we're trying to find out now is he really trying to position for a better deal? Or is he really pushing for war or total capitulation? Because the things that he's demanding are not required by international law when concerning a nuclear program. Iran has given up a lot of rights that it did not have to give up, and nobody speaks about that. And why isn't America, since she has thousands of weapons, why isn't she being monitored? Huh? Why don't they monitor Britain or France? Because these are colonial powers that want to keep a monopoly on nuclear technology and nuclear weapons so that they can then blackmail the entire world to stay in their place or what they deem as their places. That's what's going on. So let's go to something real quick. Listen, because Trump says that he pulled out of the deal so that he can get a better deal. Okay? Well, this is the man that negotiated the thing. Listen.
And became the Commissioner for Trade in the European Commission. Currently, Baroness Ashton is a member of the panel's senior advisor.
The Iran nuclear agreement is working. It is doing precisely what it was set up to do. I've heard some people, including the President of the United States, say it's a violation, there's a violation of the spirit of the deal. Well, as one of the principal negotiators of that agreement, let me just say to you, there was no spirit of the deal. There is no spirit of the deal. The deal is contained within the four corners of the agreement itself, period. And that was a specific decision agreed upon with the United States Congress, the administration, and all of the participants, that we were not going to try to solve the problem, which are legitimate problems, of missiles, interference in other countries, Hezbollah, arms transactions. All of these are serious, folks. And never once in the course of our negotiation did we backburner them. We just recognized that it did not make sense strategically to try to arrive at an agreement on nuclear weapons where you might be bargaining off something to do with nuclear in exchange for missiles or other behavior in the region. Those have to be managed, but they have to be managed separately. Why? Because the single goal which we kept in our vision always was, if you're going to deal with an Iran or any country, not just Iran, by the way, that is acting in your judgment outside of the norms of global behavior, it is better to deal with that country if it doesn't have a nuclear weapon than if it does. It's a very simple proposition. Iran made its own decision. And Iran doesn't get credit for its own decision. Iran decided not to pursue a nuclear weapon. And Iran stepped up to the plate, yes, to get rid of sanctions, but also because the Ayatollah, the supreme leader, made a decision that they were not going to pursue it. Now, to underscore the importance of what I just said, let's go back to where we were when we began. And that is a really vital place to focus on in the context of the choice that President Trump is trying to present to the Congress and to the world. Now, let me just also underscore, the decision to decertify was made without relevance to any fact whatsoever with respect to this agreement. The IAEA has in fact certified that Iran has been meeting this agreement and is fully compliant with the agreement 8 separate times. So there is no science, no fact, not any evidence whatsoever that would merit a, quote, decertification. This is just pulled out of holes, pulled out of the sky, bolt of blue, if you will. And so it has been now flipped over to the Congress of the United States with instructions. You guys fix it. Well, how the United States Congress, which wasn't part of the negotiations, isn't today certified to be part of the negotiations, quote, fixes an agreement which is working, is beyond me.
So you know what that's like? What Trump and his administration are doing, they're pushing the narrative that Iran is in violation or in contravention of the agreement when we just got facts that they have been certified over and over again to be compliant with the agreement. The only person that is in non-compliance to the agreement is the United States. Do you know that? So how can Iran be the aggressor and be the violator of international law and be threatening people when it has stayed in compliance with its obligations under the agreement that was negotiated by the United States and certified by the United States? So when we talk about he is using this as a bargaining chip, that is not a negotiation tactic. That is a tactic to force capitulation. We need to understand the difference between both. So let's go to the dictionary, okay? Oh, yeah. It's time for the rambling part, okay? So the word capitulation, according to Google's dictionary, capitulation is a noun. It means the action of surrendering or ceasing to resist an opponent or demand, right? So the United States says Iran must do this, and this, or else we'll bomb you. That is not negotiation. That is demanding things that if you do not do, then this will be the consequences. That's not giving anything. That's demanding everything. That is a plea for capitulation, not negotiation. The difference, let's go to something. Negotiation, according to Google's dictionary, is a noun. A discussion aimed at reaching an agreement. That doesn't mean, hey, I'm going to do this to you and I'm going to do that to you and you must submit to what I say. That is not negotiation. That's capitulation. Negotiation is, hey, look, we feel that this, and this is out of whack. We need to come to some type of agreement on this to ease our fears. Maybe we can arrive at some type of solution, a little give and take. That is not what's happening. America is taking and only giving out threats. That is not a recipe for a New Deal. That is imperial overreach to force capitulation. Okay? There's a difference between the two. And when you try to force capitulation with either or, and you know that you're boxing a person in that cannot do what you said and demanded, then you're setting it up for the you're not really wanting the first part of it. So you're putting you're offline. I've been thrown offline. This is crazy. Now, oh, come on. I guess they're pissed at me now. I guess they're pissed at me because they're bothering the show now, throwing me offline. See, you see this live on the air. Okay, but we're going to keep it going. You can't, man. Again, if I say I want peace, but I'm putting that person in a box where they cannot in any possible way surrender to my desires, and I tell them that if you don't do this, this is the consequences of it. I'm not actually after peace. I'm actually after a conflict. Because there is no real negotiation, only demands for capitulation. Okay? Yeah, these people are throwing me off the air. They're messing with the channel. We're going to keep pushing it, though, okay? Don't worry about what, so long as I can get back on the air, we're not even worried about them. That's life. We're going to have all these bumps. They're going to do all of these things to frustrate you, but we're going to keep pushing. All right? So, again, does he want peace? The actions say no. The actions say war. Let's go a little further, okay? All right? So, Mr. Trump, let's go to Trump real quick. All right? We're going to play part of that of Trump and then a little bit more of something else. Just pay close attention.
U.S. President Donald Trump threatened Iran on Sunday with bombing and also with what he called secondary tariffs if Tehran did not come to a new agreement with Washington over its nuclear program. In a telephone interview with NBC News, Trump said, quote, "If they don't make a deal, there will be bombing. It will be bombing, the likes of which they have never seen before." But he also suggested another outcome could be tariffs on countries that imported Iranian oil in an effort to further pressure Iran for concessions. In 2015, Iran signed a deal with the U.S. and other Western powers, accepting curbs and inspections on its nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief.
I am announcing today that the United States will withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal.
In his first term in office, Trump pulled out of that deal and ratcheted up trade barriers. In response, Tehran ramped up its uranium enrichment beyond the limits of the 2015 accord. Since returning to office, the Trump administration reached out to Tehran in a letter about coming to a new agreement. Iran sent a response through Oman saying it would not engage in direct talks while under U.S. tariff pressure and military threats.
ما از مذاکره نه تنها پرهیز نمی‌کنیم بلکه اون بدعهدی هاست که
On Sunday, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian said the U.S. government had breached the earlier agreement and needed to, quote, create trust. Tehran says its nuclear program is wholly for civilian energy purposes.
So I want to go back to FEM from California that gave the $14 super chat. He said it's disgusting what's been done to Ukraine. I hope to God there won't be any face-saving deal because these Atlanticists will never stop. They need those Russian resources. Yeah, they're never going to stop. They're never going to stop. They rest, rearm, and recalibrate. Those are the 3 R's of empire. Rest, rearm, recalibrate. So you heard him saying that he's positioning for a better deal. Okay, let's see what the person who was the head of the negotiating team had to say about a better deal. Okay?
Usually follow along wisely. But the point I want to get to is this, that when the secretary, when you came in and when you assumed this responsibility, let's say you'd done nothing. Let's say you went skiing again, okay? And you had an accident, whatever it was. Where would we be now? Where would we be now if we'd done nothing? Where would Iran be? How much danger would we be in? Or would we have lost an opportunity?
Well, listen, I will answer that question. I'll answer it directly, but I need to put this agreement into its proper perspective, folks. You have to look at the history. And when I hear a senator or a congressman stand up and say, well, we should get a better deal, let's stop and we'll negotiate and go get a better deal, that is not going to happen. There isn't a, quote, better deal to be gotten, because George Bush, to his credit, in 2003 tried to get the better deal. And to his credit, in 2008 tried to get the better deal. And what happened was, in both occasions, Iran went from a 103 or 4 centrifuges to 19,000. They went to 12,000 kilograms of fissile material, low enriched, but if further enriched, it would have produced 10 to 12 bombs. They mastered the fuel cycle. They went to 19,000 centrifuges that could rapidly break out if they chose to, but they didn't. So what everybody in this room and everybody in the world who is looking at this deal needs to understand, you can't just sit there and say, oh, I say no, let's not do this deal. We'll just go get a better one, and not take into account the history of the road that has been traveled here. When people say, oh my gosh, I'm worried about what happens in year 15 or 20, they may become a nuclear threshold nation. Folks, they are a nuclear threshold nation today. They became that. And they became that while we had a policy of no enrichment. That's the policy. So when I became Secretary of State, what did I find? I found 12,000 kilograms of material enough for 10 to 12 bombs, 19,000 centrifuges, a country that's mastered the fuel cycle, and was rushing to the completion of the Iraq heavy water plutonium reactor, which would allow them to produce enough weapons-grade plutonium for 2 bombs a year. That's where we found them. We have rolled them back from that. Only President Obama has put in place a program that's actually stopped that. And what nobody gives Iran any credit for, let alone the administration, is the fact that we're already 2 years into full compliance with an interim agreement. They rolled back their centrifuge production. They rolled back Iraq. They actually stopped all work at Iraq. We negotiated that. They have stopped all enrichment at Fordow. We've verified it by having 24/7 inspections of those facilities. We also have achieved 24/7 inspections of the Natanz facility, where they have reduced their 20% enriched uranium down to 0, destroyed the stockpile. So when people say, well, I think we can get a better deal, I'm prepared to vote no, that no vote takes 15 years or 20 years from now and makes it tomorrow. And it makes it tomorrow without any sanctions, without any inspections, without any requirement of them to do anything, because they'll go do what they want to do after we walk away from a deal.
Could you deal with the...
So Kerry's point was this. Some people say that maybe we need to get a better deal. He said it's not going to happen. He says that Iran has been in compliance. They know it because they have 24-hour surveillance and inspections, right? And he says there is no better deal. So now we have those two facts right there. So if we have those two main facts, and we look at Trump's rhetoric and look at his actions when he said he's trying to negotiate a better deal, when not only has Kerry said that, but the negotiating team, and not from just the United States, but all of those nations that were involved in the deal, say that there is no better deal to negotiate. Where does that put us when Trump says he wants to negotiate and wants peace? If he is the president, and I'm pretty sure he gets daily briefings, and they have told him, hey, look, there's no better deal. So if he's telling you that he's out for a better deal, and he knows that there is no better deal, and he pulls away from the U.S. obligations internationally and breaks international law and U.S. law, by my dad, because if it's international law, it's binding on the United States. So he's breaking U.S. and international law by pulling out of the agreement that America came up with and negotiated. Is he really after peace, or is he after capitulation and eventually war? Huh? Because if there's no better deal to be negotiated, that means there's no negotiation that's necessary. So when he says either do this, this, and this, it makes more sense now. He's not after negotiation. He's after capitulation and war. I know these truths stick at some people who thought that this might be a different president. But as I said to you, Putin made it clear that the presidents do not set the agenda. The presidents do not, how would I say, they do not run the show as everybody thinks, all right? Those men in black suits come in and tell them what they can and can't do, all right? And so we now let us position ourselves and hit the like button, because the like button is free. Hit the like button. We should not be sitting with 29 likes on this. Hit the like button, please. All right. So listen, when we look at the actions, and the actions are so almost completely diametrically opposed to the rhetoric, then we can come to an understanding that, hey, maybe this guy's not really after peace. Maybe he's after war and capitulation. Huh? And think about the damage that it has done to the U.S. dollar. Think about the damage that it has done to not just the U.S. dollar, but the damage that it's done to the U.S. international standing. For all of the important international agreements America has pulled out after negotiating. And other nations have negotiated in good and like with good feeling and an open heart. In the United States, after she's gained her advantage, she throws away the paper. Do you believe that anybody will stand there and say, you know what, let's go into another deal? As a matter of fact, let's go back to this subject and play the clip that talks about what would happen if these very things that Trump are doing right now would happen. We're going to go, I told you we're down memory lane here. And we can understand the inflation now. We can understand the de-dollarization now. We can understand that nations are now gravitating towards the Eurasian Economic Union, the African Union, the ASEAN Union. They're in the West Asian Union. They're the Global South trading in the BRICS nation, the AAIB, and all of this stuff. We can understand why there's the Latin American nations are now trying to get together so that they can formulate their own strategy with the rest of the Global South. All right. Once we look at what I'm about to show you, and I've showed you before, but not in the context of what we're going through right now. So I've got to show you this to make you understand that all of that you see with the inflation, the unemployment, the wars, the aggression by the United States, the UK, Israel, and NATO, the arrogance of them in the day of their decline had a starting point. And there was a warning given that if America did X, Y, and Z and pulled out of the nuclear agreement, this would happen. Boom, 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 boom. And we see that what was warned is happening. So now we got to see what was said in the warning. Okay? Pay close attention, all right?
The deal. Could you deal with some people say, oh, we've got the 5+1 together again and negotiate a better deal? You're beginning to deal with that. Will you deal with the problem of getting that 5+1 again to get on the same position you're in now?
One of the reasons, Sir Harry, that we felt it was important to move forward with this negotiation is the fact that the sanctions was already framed. Remember, folks, we don't trade with Iran. We have a primary embargo. And by the way, the primary embargo will stay. And the embargo on them for arms weapons stays. And we have other UN resolutions that prohibit them from sending weapons to the Houthi, weapons to the Iraqi Shia militia, weapons to Hezbollah. We have all the things in the world to be able to enforce and deal with their behavior. It just hasn't happened sufficiently. But the bottom line is that under this agreement, Iran is in a much tighter box, if you will, because they have to live up to the international agreement with the threat that all the sanctions will snap back if they don't. And they will snap back automatically. One nation alone can bring them back. And we will have the support of France, Germany, Britain, China, and Russia when that happens, because it'll be under a process. But if everybody thinks, oh no, we're just tough, the United States of America, we have our secondary sanctions, we can force people to do what we want. I actually heard that argument on television this morning. I've heard it from a number of the organizations that are working, that are opposed to this agreement. They're spreading the word, America is strong enough, our banks are tough enough, we can just bring the hammer down and force our friends to do what we want them to. Well, look, a lot of business people in this room. Are you kidding me? The United States is going to start sanctioning our allies and their banks and their businesses because we walked away from a deal, and we're going to force them to do what we want them to do even though they agreed to the deal we came to? Are you kidding? That is a recipe quickly, my friends, for them to walk away from Ukraine, where they are already very dicey and ready to say, well, we've done our bit. They were ready, in many cases, to say, well, we're the ones paying the price for your sanctions. It was Obama who went out and actually put together a sanctions regime that had an impact. I went to China. We persuaded China, don't buy more oil. We persuaded India and other countries to step back. Can you imagine trying to sanction them after persuading them to put in place sanctions to bring Iran to the negotiating table? And when they have not only come to the table, but they made a deal, we turn around and nix the deal and then tell them you're going to have to obey our rules on the sanctions anyway. That is a recipe very quickly, my friends, business people here, for the American dollar to cease to be the reserve currency of the world, which is already bubbling out there. And if the United States were to behave that way, not only would we have lost them with respect to the sanctions, but we will lose their support if we have to use military action. Can you imagine Israel and the United States taking military action because we forced a situation where Iran goes back to what it was doing because we wouldn't live by the deal that we already agreed to, which the United Nations has already approved 15-0 in the Security Council? It doesn't make sense. Now,
even it doesn't make sense. Before I go further, Exponent Zero, Rashid, I feel out of the loop. Weren't you going to do a collab with Danny and the New Atlas? Is Brian Berletic okay? Brian, I just talked to Brian yesterday twice. He's okay. We're doing something. Right now, he had some more pressing came up, and we're gonna get to that as soon as he takes care of that. Okay. Thank you for asking too. So let's go further on. I had to highlight that because I didn't want you to think that I didn't see it, okay? So everything that, and I'm not a John Kerry fan. I know he's one of these guys that are just out there, all right? But when somebody tells you the truth and then you see the manifestation of what they said happening, you have to acknowledge the truth. He warned that if America did X, Y, and Z, then this would happen. If we pulled out of the deal that we negotiated and forced other nations to sign on to. So now we see that the United States did just that. She pulled out of that agreement, and then she started threatening not only sanctions on Iran and Iran's allies, but even on her own allies. And now she's doing what was the one thing he said at the end? And threatening to go to war with Iran, the United States and Israel, right? Right? That is the recipe for what? For the US dollar to cease to be the world's reserve currency. What are we watching? Global dollarization. Huh? I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I'm not making this stuff up. I'm not embellishing anything. I'm just bringing this stuff to the forefront because other people refuse to talk about it. Other people. And so I want to give you an insight on what's going on. Don't believe the madness. As I said in the title is so much, and the picture is worth 1,000 words. All for the empire. Out with the old, in with the old. They are just talking to their constituencies, trying to make you believe that these people are for the people. You know, I did an interview with Gregory Mannarino. And Gregory Mannarino, in the interview, and you know, the Robin Hood of Wall Street, right? He brought up a point that I've been making for the longest. He said that Trump, during his campaign, was talking about eradicating the Fed and returning to sound money and sound economics. But when he came into the office, he has become the best friend of the Fed and has done everything, any and everything to strengthen the Fed's powers, right? What does that have to do with what the wars? Greg also goes and says the reason that they're pushing for the wars is for the expansion of more debt. The United States and the Western world, if they cannot expand the debt bubble, boom goes the dynamite. So they have to expand the wars. They have to snatch resources. They have to provoke nations. They have to do this because the time is against them. All of what you see and all of what you hear goes back to economics. There's two pressing things against the empire. There's two pressing things against the Western world. Two pressing things. They're out of time and they're out of money, which means, in essence, they're out of luck. Because the policies that they used to be able to put in, because they controlled all the levels of international institutions, is no longer viable. And so this is what is aggravating them. And this is causing them to act faster than what they wanted to act. This is causing them to act irrational. This is causing them to just throw any and everything up against the geopolitical wall to see if anything will stick, to buy them just a little bit more time. Just a little bit. Because they understand that mathematics is against them. Listen, I don't care how much you add 3 and 3, you will never come up with 974. Never. The debt burden. Europe is plagued with debt by individual European nations and as the European Union as a whole. The United States, the greatest debtor nation in the history of the world. Nothing she can do can get her out of the position that she now finds herself in. So she wants to burn the entire system down so that she can try to reset it and be the head of what she's trying to make. This is driving the world closer and closer to the brink of war, and everybody want to overlook this. They want to put it on Zelensky. And as I say, going back to Zelensky, before we bring the show to a close, I want to just ramble a little bit with you all. We've been on topic with all of this stuff, but I want to ramble a little bit. So people were saying that Zelensky was begging for more weapons. Was he wrong? If you promised them to him, was he within his right to do it, especially after sacrificing 1 million people and sacrificing the future of his country? Was he wrong? Huh? And especially after you promised whatever it takes, no matter how long, was he wrong? Even if he was a puppet, was he wrong? Because you're supposed to live up to your word. You shouldn't have to have a contract. You should be able to look a man or a woman in the eye, say what you have to say, shake their hand, and it be solid. So now all of the alternative media, all of the mainstream media are trying to spin this and say that Trump in the West is looking for peace. Peace in Ukraine. They have never looked. What they're looking for is an advantageous moment in the war so that they can try to stifle the fires of war, keep it smoldering. They want it smoldering. And then they can extricate themselves a little bit and lead from behind while presenting a front against China and Asia. Because they say China is the most pressing threat. Why? Non-white, non-Western, and non-compliant nation. These three nons are unacceptable to the so-called hegemon. Realize that they don't have the money, the manufacturing capability, or the political capital to take on Iran, to take on China. So what they're about to do, mark my words, they're going to go for the weakest link. That's Iran. Not saying that Iran is weak, but out of the three nations that they're targeting, Iran is the weakest of the three. And if they can get Iran, they can get control of the pipelines that run through Central Asia or that are planned for Central Asia and Western Asia, all the way up into Europe. They want to get control of the land routes to stymie and then eventually stop the Belt and Road Initiative. They want to get into Iran because it is the underbelly of Russia and of China, and even of, and India doesn't think this, but even the underbelly of India and Pakistan. They want to control the waterways, the land routes, and the air routes so that they can hold the entire world hostage to the barrel of a gun. And that forces everybody to accept dollars in trade. And it also puts a choke point on China's economy. Because as America was building and had successive plans to try to choke China in the event of a war through the Malacca Straits and all of the waterways, they realized that China planned too, and China had backstopped its plans with getting resources from Russia and also trading land routes through Central Asia, West Asia, and through Africa and through Europe. So the best way to cut off this is Iran. And if you can cut off Iran, You can put China's preeminent rise in jeopardy. You can slow down Russia's reemergence, and you can buy time for the Western Empire to rest, recalibrate, and rearm. They want to rest, recalibrate, and rearm so that they can then try to use the economics and the military of suppressing Iran so that they can reorganize the world order after them again. That is the plan. Mark my words. You'll see more of this in the days ahead. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me on the most powerful platform for truth, bar none, on God's green earth. This is your platform for education, elevation, and edification. This is the Red Pill Diaries, and I'm your host, your brother, and your friend, Rashid. Join us tomorrow at 1 Central, 2 Eastern time. We will have CIA analyst Larry Johnson back on the program. We're going to be kicking it and bringing up some things, and you guys get to ask questions. And this week we'll have a live stream for channel members and Patreons. And I want to thank each and every one of you for your donations and for your time, because we don't have much time, and time is a valuable commodity. It is an unrenewable resource. So when you give me your time, I take it seriously, and I try and I hope that for you spending your time, because that's why it's called spending your time, you receive an equal or greater payoff through our exchanges on the Red Pill Diaries. I want you all to look at each other and do right by each other, not because there's some financial benefit or some accolades or some kind of gain behind it. Do right because it's the godly, it's the right thing, and it's the humane thing to do. Because even when no one else is watching, God Almighty is watching you. And as I tell you all, as my mom always say, God sits high, but he looks low. I want you all to know that if you love truth, I love each and every one of you. But know that the love that I have for you will always pale in comparison to the love that God has for you. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, remember to stay righteous. Hey, mama, look at your baby boy shine. I love you more than life. Deuces, everybody. Thank you all. We're out of here. Peace.
Told you to walk away. That was my first and last mistake. I'm blue without your face. But what can I do? 'Cause I'm just a sinking ship, and you're just a pair of lips that I've lost in the moment. All I want is for you to come back. Now I'm caught